Hey guys, it's Sasha. The world is in the middle of the worst financial crisis we have seen in decades. Global stock markets are in meltdown, with the S&P 500 dropping even lower yesterday, down 24% so far this year. Inflation is at over 8%, a level we haven't seen in over 40 years. The world's biggest currencies that used to be a beacon of stability are fluctuating like a picture of a monkey wearing a funny hat. Talking of monkeys, the crypto bros seem to have largely abandoned their imaginary gold-laden ships, but still have no way of moving out of their mom's basement because the property market is also in turmoil and banks have now stopped giving out mortgages. And you would think that in the middle of this incongruent mess, there would perhaps be some people bestowed with the giant brains and expertise that would right the ship through stormy waters. Maybe, just maybe, there would be people whose job it literally is to apply the right tools at their disposal to lead us into the dark abyss with a shining torch. But alas, it appears that those very people seem to have absolutely no idea what the actual fuck it is that they are doing. And every week that passes during this financial crisis makes you wonder that little bit more. Why is it that the very people who should perhaps know a thing or two about managing the economy seem to be pursuing a strategy more akin to a drunk monkey playing darts? In the US, we have the Federal Reserve. A group made up of the heads of the various local Federal Reserve banks meet every 6 weeks to decide on monetary policy. And they seem to roughly know what their job description is because they keep repeating it over and over in press conferences. Their job is to ensure the highest possible employment while maintaining stable prices and reasonable interest rates. We find ourselves in a situation where people are having to choose between feeding their family or heating the house because food prices are up 13% year on year while energy bills have gone off the chart. And the boss of the doofus crew called Jerome Powell was quick to remind you that this is a global crisis, and of course the members of the Federal Open Market Committee are absolutely not to blame for all of this in any way whatsoever, except the same idiot just 10 months ago was telling everyone that inflation is transitory and will of course, no doubt about it, will dissipate all by itself with no action required by the Fed. In March 2021, exactly a year after COVID started, and central banks around the world, including the Fed, started running the money printer 24/7, inflation started increasing. And this wasn't some kind of a surprise because it's the sort of basic economics you learn in primary school when you find out that Pokemon cards that are printed in larger quantities have lower value than those that are rare. Then inflation quickly climbs to over 5%. And at this point, nobody seemed to care because stocks were going up, everything was great, the world was slowly coming out of the COVID hysteria. But fast forward to October, and inflation began climbing again, reaching 6.2%, a level not seen since November 1990. And you would think that at that point, maybe somebody would look at it and say, this ain't no good. But no. Jerome Powell and Janet Yellen spent their days telling everybody that this is no problem whatsoever, and inflation will still just disappear because of magic. It quickly transpired that magic does in fact only happen at children's birthday parties, and inflation suddenly skyrocketed to over 8%. And after thinking about it, the bank remembered that when inflation goes up, they apparently have to do something like increasing interest rates. And eventually, after scratching their ass for an entire year, the Fed decided to battle the 8.5% inflation rate with a 0.25% interest rate increase. A woefully inadequate measure that clearly showed they are doing too little too late and that the idiots still don't understand the full scale of the problem. Now the Fed is desperately trying to play catch up by making bold statements like, we will do whatever we have to do to keep inflation at 2%, and nobody seems to ask the question, what the fuck were you doing for the entire duration of last year? In any actual job, you would be fired on the spot for being so woefully incompetent, but it seems that you can very obviously suck your job, make shit up as you go, and it will mean absolutely nothing if you are the chairman of the Federal Reserve. But turning to the original source of this clusterfuck, we have the politicians. For some completely incomprehensible reason, we as a society have decided that it is perfectly okay to place a random politician with no relevant experience whatsoever into the role of managing the country's finances and fiscal policy. There is an army of people out there with extensive experience, deep knowledge of financial systems, but for whatever reason, we let a bunch of nobodies who are too busy fighting each other for political political votes, debate budgets, and pass financial legislation despite having zero experience in the financial industry. And the COVID crisis has highlighted what happens when politicians are pursuing a populist policy of spending like there is no tomorrow by printing money with no regard for what the implications may be. In the UK, the situation is even worse because ministers, including the Chancellor of the Exchequer, are almost exclusively picked from a very small list of the members of Parliament who happen to be from the same party as the Prime Minister. And this is how you end up with policies like aggressively stimulating the economy and cutting taxes at a time when inflation is rife and the exact opposite is required. The new UK government passed an emergency budget on Friday which tries to combat excessive spending that causes high inflation by putting more money into people's pockets so they can go and spend a bit more. The cure to printing too much money in the last 2 years is, of course, to print even more money. This policy is so profoundly dumb that the IMF took the highly unusual step of formally declaring it to be really fucking dumb, something they haven't ever done before. As a result of Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng showing baffling levels of incompetence, the British pound decided to collapse by 10% in less than 3 weeks that this new UK government has been in power. And to fix this problem, everyone looked to the Bank of England. Surely, those guys know what they're doing. Somebody must, right? And everyone was shouting for the Bank of England to increase rates in an emergency hike to stop this financial turmoil. The big brains of the Bank of England spent 5 days twiddling their thumbs before doing the exact opposite of what everyone told them to do. They decided that taking time out of their busy schedules of doing fuck all is not important enough, even if the UK economy is collapsing. So they're going to wait until their next scheduled meeting in November before increasing rates. But in the meantime, to counter the idiots in Downing Street who are stimulating the economy, the Bank of England decided to stimulate the economy by buying bonds. Because of course, keeping stable bond prices by artificially suppressing the price through buying as much as possible is the best course of action right now. What the actual fuck is going on? It seems to be more and more clear by the day that a large part of the reason we are in this financial mess in the middle of a global financial crisis is because of gross negligence and an astounding level of incompetence by the very people we have entrusted to manage our finances. Each day that passes, you have to pinch yourself and inquire as to what is going on. Who is in charge? Perhaps more importantly, why are they in charge? Do they have any fucking idea about what they are doing? If they repeatedly show that they do not have any idea, they have exactly zero idea what they're doing and are persistently failing, why are they still in their cushy jobs when a blind, mentally challenged raccoon would have done a better job? How long do we as a society have to wait for things to change? Or is there perhaps an incentive for things never to change, for things to get worse? And if so, are we okay with that? These decisions are affecting real people. Families across the world are struggling to pay their basic bills. This winter, people will have to choose to go hungry or to be cold. This is not some kind of a fucking joke. It's not just numbers on a piece of paper. These morons are affecting real people's lives, and for whatever reason, being a politician makes you exempt from any scrutiny. Oops, we got it completely wrong when it was blindingly obvious in the first place is apparently a legitimate excuse. How bad does it have to get before we stop letting people who have no fucking idea have unlimited power with no accountability?